Hello guys and welcome back to the Minifest channel. I'm bringing you guys Tearlaments this time. Last time I analysed sprites, or as they're now called, sprites. Pretty cool name change, because they are basically sprites. Little electric spirits, I guess. Cool name. Also, you can make memes about Sprite, I guess. But yeah, I'm continuing this series where I'm analysing all the archetypes in Power of the Elements. And yeah, let's get right into it, I guess. Starting off, we have Rhino Heart, as you can see on screen here, which is basically the best monster you can start with in this deck. It's like the only one card combo in this deck without relying on the mills, obviously. So what this card does is on summon it foolishes a Tearlament from deck. So you can send this to send one of the fusion summon ones to make the level 5 fusion, which is pretty good fusion. And when it's sent by card effect, you can summon this back. It's good for XYZ plays and link climbing and stuff, just because of its nature. It's also a warrior, so you can search it off Rota. And it's also listed on Kaleido Heart's fusion materials, which means you can summon this out of deck with fusion deployment, which is pretty good. The only downside being that fusion deployment locks you into fusion for the rest of the turn. But specialing your play starter out of the deck for free is pretty good payoff. The next monster, the other level 4 in the deck, and what you usually use to pair with Rhino Heart for rank 4 plays is Shaylin. So Shaylin says it summons for free from the hand by sending another monster for card effect in the hand, and then milling free. So you can go Shaylin, send Rhino Heart, mill free, special Shaylin, then special back to Rhino Heart, overlay for any rank 4 that detaches for effect. Usually the one that's played is Redoer, just because it gets itself back. It's free body. Like if we had Azathoth, then it would obviously be Nyala, and then you can detach to for effect and then rank up into Azathoth and then be protected from monster effects. But we don't have Azathoth, so the play is obviously for Redoer detach for effect, so you can detach the Shaylin to trigger its fusion summon effect and then go off, make a fusion, etc, etc. So pretty good in combination with Rhino Heart. Even by itself, it's a pretty good card in general, as long as you have a monster to send from hand, obviously. It's got the effect to fusion summon, which all of them have, other than Rhino Heart, the only Tearlament not to have the fusion summon effect. So when it's sent by card effect to the grave, you can put fusion materials from hand, field, or grave to the bottom of the deck, including itself, to fusion summon, basically. And all of them have this effect other than Rhino Heart. You just use that to summon any of the fusions, like the level 5 Kaleido Heart. It can even summon generic fusions. The generic fusions you usually go for are Dragus Tupelia, Mirror Jade if you're playing the branded version, Winder if you're playing the Shadol version, and so many other stuff you can play. Like Millennium Eyes Restrict is another one you can play. If you're playing the King of the Swamps, you can make... King of the Swamp lets you make pretty much so many fusions, but that requires you to play King of the Swamp. So it's up to you, basically. The next monster, which is also a pretty cool monster, is Halfinis. So what this one does is when your opponent activates a monster effect on field, quick effect, special this from hand, and then mill free. So you can use this to mill Tearlaments if you're lucky, and then combo off and fusion summon and stuff in your opponent's turn without even having a turn. So it's a pretty cool card. And the next card we have is Meru. This card does is it just mills free off the top of your deck. Pretty cool effect, but probably the worst monsters out of all of them, but needed because it's another fusion summon effect. Same as Halfinis, it's also another fusion summon effect. And it's also a level 2, so if you do want to be spicy and combine both Tearlaments and Splite, you can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's not the best. And the only spell card that this deck has currently, which is Pelreno. So on activation, this adds Tearlament or Visa Starfrost from deck to hand. Fusion monsters and Tearlaments gain 500 attack. And if a Tearlament monster is returned from field and or grave to the deck or extra deck, you can pop a card. So it's basically a pop every time you fusion summon, basically. Obviously it's once per turn, but yeah, you get what I mean. Like on your turn, fusion summon, pop a card. On your opponent's turn, fusion summon, pop a card. Back to your turn, fusion summon, pop a card, etc, etc. Also lets you play cards like terraforming, just... This deck can basically play every good staple. Like, you can play Rota for Reinoheart, Instant Fusion for the level 5 fusion, Terraforming. It's like pretty insane. It just abuses everything pretty much. And this card can also search Visa Starfrost, which is an interesting tech you can play in this deck. Because you can go Visa Starfrost to pop a Tearlament to summon the Visa Starfrost, and then trigger the Tearlament to summon something. And then if you go for the level 5 fusion there, you can synchro with the level 5 fusion and Visa Starfrost into Baron. Or you can use the Visa Starfrost to go into like Hulk plays and stuff. Even set up Daggerlock as well, because why not? And with every field spell with 3 effects, obviously it's cracked. So yeah. Next we're going to move to the 3 trap cards we get in Power of the Elements, which are all pretty insane. I mean, the worst one is a counter trap, and so you can tell how crazy these cards are. Like, the normal trap, which in my opinion is the best card, well, the best trap card out of all of them. So while you control a Tearlament or a Visa Starfrost, target monster your opponent controls, Book of Moonlit, and then send a Tearlament from deck to grave. So you can use this to set one of your opponent's cards, and send a Tearlament, so you can send one of the fusion summon ones. And then you can also use this to trigger the big fusion to shuffle a card back. So it's a pretty good card. And it's also got the effect that if this is milled by a card effect, you can add back a Tearlament monster from grave. So pretty good recycling, And the next trap we got is the continuous trap, which is pretty crazy because it is a continuous trap. So like if you control a Tearlament monster or Visa Starfrost, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, and then send a monster you control to the grave. So you can go like Imperma monster, then send a monster you control to the grave, and then trigger its effect to like fusion summon if it's a Tearlament, or like if it's Reinoheart, just bring it back. If it's a level 5 fusion, mill 5, just good cards pretty much. But it does require you to have set up on field. It's like 50-50 in that case. Like, the milling effect of the first trap is way better in my opinion, so like I prefer setting that up more. But this is a better mill effect, because when this is milled to the grave, you can add any Tearlament monster from deck to hand, so pretty good. Like, you can add the Halfiness as potential interruption, I guess, because when your opponent activates an effect on field, well, a monster effect on field, you can then go Halfiness, mill 3. So, pretty good. And the last trap, the counter trap, and the worst one in my opinion. So when a spell trap card or monster effect is activated while you control Tearlament or Visa Starfrost, negate the activation and shuffle that card into the deck. Then you can send any monster from your hand to the grave. So like this does require you to hold a monster, which is why I think it's the worst one, because usually you want to use all your monsters to like go for big fusion plays and stuff, and like combo off, so you never really want to hold on to any of the monsters. But yeah, it is a counter trap though in the end, so like you can use it to stop stuff like Evenly, Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler, Droplet if they don't discard a trap. Just good cards. And Zombie World, because Zombie World does hurt this deck quite a bit, since the fusions does require you to have Aquas as material, so you can't make any of the fusions while Zombie World's up unless you use Tearlaments from your hand, because there's still Aquas in your hand. And this card's mill effect is the worst one as well, because this only adds banished Tearlaments, which is pretty much always only Reinoheart. That's only if you reborn it with its own effect, so like pretty meh. But yeah, those are all the main deck cards. So we're now going to move into the extra deck cards, which are 2 fusions we have so far in Power of the Elements. And I'm just going to go over them because these cards are pretty cracked as well. So we have the level 5 fusion, which is insane. So to summon this, you need to use a Tearlament monster and any aqua monster. When this is special, you can take a Tearlament card from your deck and add it to hand, or send it to grave. So you can like send a Tearlament to fusion summon. You can add one of the traps and set it for your opponent's turn. 90% of the time, you want to search the traps just because of how good they are, and they can foolish a monster to fusion summon anyway if you don't have any other access into another fusion. It's also got another effect where you can target a monster you control, special Tearlament from hand or grave, and then send a monster on board that you targeted. And it's also got an effect that when it's sent to the grave by card effect, you can mill 5. So you can go this, send itself to special one back, and then mill 5. Pretty good. And if you summon like Meru, you can mill an extra 3 off of that as well. So like mill 8, pretty good. And if you go like the punk route, you go mill 5 off of Chaos Ruler, mill 4 off of Zombie Vampire, mill 5 off of this, mill 3 off of Meru. So you just mill half your deck instantly. So it's pretty good. And it is a level 5. So you can play Instant Fusion, which is insane. It turns Instant Fusion into like a +3, maybe even a 4, depending on your mills and stuff. So like, insane. Very insane. All the Tearlaments are aquas as well, so it's pretty easy to go into this, other than Rhinoheart, which is a warrior. But like, you don't usually want to use Rhinoheart as material for this because you want to hold it for Kaleido Heart. But like, if you need to use Rhinoheart as one of the materials, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, moving on to the last fusion, the boss monster of the deck, Kaleido Heart. Kaleido Heart's materials are Rhinoheart, which is mandatory, and any 2 aqua monsters. And this card can't be used as fusion material, so it can't be like super polyed away or contact fused or anything like that. And if this is specialed, or an aqua is sent to grave by card effect while it's on board, you can target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. So on your turn, when you fusion summon this, you can spin a card, and then you can trigger it again on your opponent's turn with stuff like Meta Noise, the normal trap, and foolishing any of the Tearlaments other than Rhinoheart to trigger this to shuffle a card back and then fusion summon into something else. And obviously keep in mind you can't use this as one of the fusion materials. It's also got an effect when it's sent to grave by card effect. You can just summon it back by foolishing any Tearlament card, even the traps. So pretty good floating effect. Just a good card in general, pretty much. And pretty strong boss monster. So then we move on to the big question. How good will this deck be? Will it be good enough for Euros? Will it be a tier 1 contender? Will it compete with Splight? So yeah, it's definitely going to be a very strong deck. Definitely going to be a tier 1 contender. Maybe not, maybe like tier 1.5 or something like that. Because this deck definitely needs to be solved. There's lots of different routes you can go with this deck, such as Adventure, because like you can discard for card effect off of Fateful, and just like spitting out Griffin is pretty nice. You have the Punk stuff. The Punk stuff isn't played in the OCG because Max C is over there, and like the Punk stuff spam bodies, and like if you're letting your opponent draw like 20 cards, just like mill 5 off Chaos Ruler and mill an extra 4 for your opponent and yourself off of the Zombie Vampire, like you're letting your opponent go like +30 just to mill 9 for yourself, which is not very ideal. But over here it's obviously much better because we don't have Maxi. And we also have lots of cards, like we have the like branded stuff is obviously really good. Branded Fusion is an insane card. But the branded stuff do take up a lot of space, so it does restrict your XYZ and Link plays, and branded Fusion does lock you into fusions, but branded Fusion is also really good. So like up to you if you want to play that build. There's the Shadow build where you can just play like the Shadows to spam out Winder and stuff. Winder's a pretty good card too. Maybe even a Light Swan build, who knows. But yeah, there's like so many routes you can go in this deck. It obviously needs to be solved, because like Splight's already pretty much solved because it's a very straightforward deck in terms of builds and playability, etc. But this deck obviously requires more thinking in terms of deck building and plays and mills. Hope you mill good. Milling is very important in this deck, because if you mill bad in this deck, you pretty much lose the game. So you gotta pray to always mill insane, which I don't really like in decks. I prefer to have a really consistent engine rather than pray you hit something good. Like, these are all like good things to keep in mind. Like, do you want to take the risk and hope you mill good, or do you just want to play a consistent deck and just like stick to Splight? So like, it is up to each player's preference, each player's play style in the end. I personally think that Splight is definitely the better deck right now, but with the introduction of the Shizu support we get soon, it definitely boosts the Tearlament cards, since you can like mill so many cards from the Shizu support we get soon. I will like go over the Shizu support closer to their release date, but right now I'm just covering what will be necessary before Euros. Basically, I'll be covering this, which I am doing now, the Rika support, the Exorcist support, the Mathmech Circular, the New Furion card, just a bunch of stuff. And then I will be doing combo tutorials on a bunch of decks you can expect to see there. I'll be going over what to expect for Euros going into the event, with the introduction of so many new cards, what staples you want, stuff like that. Yeah, just stay tuned. I've got a lot of content on the way. I'm definitely going to be uploading more consistently than in the past, which was just once a week back in the day. But right now, I'm uploading a lot more. So a lot of content on the way. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Like, leave down below any decks you want to see from POTE format. I'll make sure to do a video on them soon, if not next. And yeah, it's been your boy Minifairs, and I'll catch you guys next time.